And at first, when I listened to those lyrics, I was kind of apprehensive.
Really?
Like when I'm listening to like Meg, I'm like, well, damn,
Tell me, spit a bar where you're like, wait a minute, what? No.
Tiffany, you really had to call him out.
I just want to know what.
You know, where she was like hands on my knees. Oh, she looked like that. I was like, wait a minute. At first, I'm trying to say, I'm like, well, man, what you talking about?
Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of Queen's Vantage Podcast. And how lucky am I? I have two of my high school buddies with us today. So I'll start by introducing Tiffany Banks.
Hey.
Hey, Tiff. So Tiff, just a brief bio on you. Tiff is a spoken word artist. She is also the author of an amazing book, which you all should check out, which is Say La, which you can find on Tiffany's website at tiffanybankswork.com. Tiffany is also a wellness advocate. So, Tiff, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And Shawn Meshack, who is a father, an amazing friend. And listen, if you post anything on Instagram, he gonna let you know if it's wrong. And also a soon-to-be husband.
Hey.
Shawn, thank you for joining Queen's Vantage today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So you're probably curious what sparked this conversation today. And I think I made a post on Instagram. So real talk. And Shawn got at me. And the question was, so Tiff, as you and I are in this dating phase of our life, and so I often feel, my personal opinion is that sometimes, often, men like women to chase them. And being a Southern girl, raised in a Southern family, I'm used to chivalry and men courting. And so, Shawn, you got at me with the post and you said, let's unpack this a little bit. And so let's just start there, y'all. And then we're going to get into like what y'all been up to since high school. So, Shawn, I want to ask, I think we're a part of a different generation. And so I think probably some of our upbringings and traditional beliefs are, I would say, more so in alignment. But I posed that question, so now we're taking it to Queen's Vantage Podcast. Are you noticing this? What are you noticing in the dating atmosphere right now for men and women, especially our age?
Well, for me, I've been out for a while, so little preface with that. There's a change. I think there is a paradigm shift, right? So when we are looking at change and things are happening, it gets a little bit uncomfortable. And I think like our traditional ways of thinking are now being challenged during these modern times. People are doing things differently. People are thinking things differently. I think like a lot of people are in this age of discovery where they are really discovering their true being and the essence of their true being and how they approach life. And so that changes. And I think that, just to stick to the question is, as far as men being chased by women, that is a portion of it. I think that's a part of it. I think that what it does is, as a man, it does make you feel like you're appreciated, like you're wanted, that you're needed. But there is a certain point that has to stop and has to be reciprocated, right?
Yeah.
So the chasing has to be kind of done together, so to speak, because if you guys truly desire to really want to get to know each other, then both of you guys are going to make the effort to do so.
But let's talk about that, because especially traditionally for me, the act of chasing is, for me, outside of my feminine energy. My energy is best suited when I am comfortable with a man, right? And when I say chase, I don't mean like put on your Jordans and run after me. But what I mean is like court me properly. But I think that is like a lost, like the act of courting is a lost art form right now. And Tiffany, I just want to know your experience. And Tiff was on my last podcast. So if you haven't watched it, check it out. But Tiff, we were talking about dating being clean now at the age of 40. And perhaps not now, but have you experienced dating a man and maybe even feeling him a little bit and feeling like he just kind of backed away and then wanted you to call him and text him. Because I hear what you're saying, Shawn, about reciprocated. But I also think there's a bit of like insecurity in that. What I sense from a man, that there's a insecurity that they have. But I just want to know about your experience. Have you experienced that, men wanting you to chase them?
I've definitely experienced that. It comes in many forms. I've experienced it in various degrees where it was straight narcissism and just somebody who just needed some reassurance, and it's understandable. And I think we had a conversation once and we talked about how dating, for me, I'd like it to feel more like a dance. So with that, it's like, I'm also moving with you. You know what I mean? And it's not like, just the man or the person pursuing puts forth the energy. I also respond. And that respond may be the reassurance that person needs or just the communication to let them know, like, I'm inviting more of you into my world. I think Shawn hit it on the head when he referenced the fact that we're in modern times. So we're coming from, I think our generation is that threshold generation where it's like we're crossing the bridge from the traditional ways of, the masculine energy puts out a certain amount of effort, courts the woman responds. And this was during and, cultivated during a time where women weren't working. Women weren't, they were uneducated. They didn't have the same rights as men. And now we're in this new era where women are independent and, we are also speaking up and putting it out there if we like someone or not, whether that's for you or not, that's a different conversation. But altogether, we're in a different place. And I think we're in that liminal phase where the men are used to the constructs of women wanting to keep a man or women feeling validated because of marriage. And now women are like, marriage doesn't validate me anymore. Right. A relationship doesn't validate me, doesn't define who I am. And I think that the older, not necessarily, not the mindset that the men in our generation have, but the tradition that is ingrained, embedded into like just what we've seen before us is hard for the pursuers or masculine energy, however you want to phrase it, to kind of understand or interpret like, they're not responding or chasing or letting me know that they need me or they are interested in the ways that the older generation would have communicated that. So it's confusing. I think we're all in this like he said it, he was like, we're coming to know ourselves. Everyone's coming to know themselves in this new era. And I think we're just a little confused and trying to fit things together like a puzzle piece.
So I want to really quick, just to,
go ahead.
Really piggyback.
I'm so long-winded.
It's okay. Tiffany's great. No, that response is 100% spot on. And I think that we are also redefining our roles. Because what some people define as, this is what a man does, and this is what a woman does, we're finding that it does not always apply.
Right.
It is not a one size fits all. And I think like that's where we come into trouble because we have this expectation that things are supposed to be X, Y, Z, when really it's A, B, C. But you at the end, we haven't figured out how to start. We're looking at the finished product, and it's like that's not how it goes. You have to like Tiffany says, it's a dance. Right. So we have to figure which way we're going. Are we going left? Are we going right? Right. Are we spinning? Are we taking a bow? Is the dance over? Right. What is it that we're really intending to do? And I think that intention has to be made by both parties. What is your intention? Are we looking to date? Are we looking for more? Are we truly getting to know who that other person is in their essence for everything that they are, how they are, as they are, where they are? Are we at a point in our lives where we're able to do that? Have we grown enough within ourselves? Because to me, we got a bunch of people looking out for their better halves when they should be looking for their whole.
Absolutely.
So, if I'm 50% and I'm looking for somebody for their 50%, we're going to be 100%. But what happens is it's a struggle because now
Right. Or when one
I'm
person
lacking.
isn't at, that fullness, the other person has nothing to lean on. You're coming from a place of deficit. So I love how you said, like, we need wholes in relationship, two whole people coming together. I want to ask this question because, Tiffany, you touched on independence. And again, there's so many titles put on women, so when we say we're independent, for whatever reason, society is here and we're saying we don't need a man. And I like to say we're saying the exact opposite of that, right? But Shawn, just curious to know a man's perspective. When you hear Tiffany say, I'm an independent woman, or you hear me say I'm an independent woman, what do you hear?
I premise this with everybody when I first say it, because I think that first I hear is this is the creator that is speaking to you. As a woman, you are the creator. Life begins inside of you. Somewhere along the line, we got this mixed up conception that it had to be a man that pretty much set out the rules for everything, and everyone followed. And if you didn't follow the rules, you were out of line. When I hear independent woman, what I hear is that this is a self-actualization. This is understanding that your purpose, your existence is as a human being, that you are able to provide for everything that you need independently. That does not mean that there's not help. That does not mean that there is a partner to accentuate, because what it is when we talk about two people, what do we say? We say a partnership. We say a team.
Right.
We don't say this is a boss and then this is an employee.
Right.
The dynamics of relationship does not depend on that. And if it does, then that's when you have control issues.
Right.
That's when you have narcissists. That's when you create that toxic environment, because it's a constant struggle over a power structure. That if you don't adhere to that power structure, if you start to veer, then that's when the issues arise. So when I hear independent women as a father, especially of daughters, I say amen. I say you better be independent, because guess what? If something were to happen to your partner, what are you going to do?
Right.
If anything were to happen to your partner, do you know how to sustain this?
Right.
Do you know how to maintain this? Because it's about maintenance. A relationship is about maintenance. And has to be, two people have to both be capable of pouring into that. And the minute that somebody just is solely dependent on the only pourer, then that relationship becomes dependent on that one, and it becomes imbalanced. And I think that you tend to lose, and I don't think you want to admit it, but you tend to almost lose respect. Because it's like, if you bring nothing to the table, because that's our favorite concept right now, is what do you bring to the table? And I don't mean just financially, I don't mean just spiritually, I don't mean just mentally, but what are you bringing? What are we bringing together? Because this is two of us. We are forming two circles in the infinite, not one circle. We are infinitely. So we are coexisting within each other and as each other. What
I think is interesting is that we will dress in our blue and red, white, and blue on Independence Day, right? We'll go to Juneteenth celebrations to celebrate, the different independence. But when a woman celebrates her independence, there is no one dressed up and there are no parades for us. I had this conversation with my son and I asked him the question, when I say I'm an independent woman, what do you hear? And he says, you're saying that you're a boss and that you can rely on yourself. And I said, but do you hear me saying I don't need a man? He said, no, I don't hear that. I hear that, Mom, you've gone through a lot and you've come to this place where you can stand on your own 2 feet. And I'm like, okay, thank you. Because I'm like, I want to make sure I'm raising that kid right, or all three of my boys right. And so it's never the absence of a man, and realizing what he reminded me was like, there was a point in time when women did not work and could not work. And he said, so for me, it's like understanding that you were excluded from places. So what I hear you saying is I'm celebrating the fact that I'm here. I'm showing up. And can't anyone take this away from me? And I'm like, at 20 years old, he gets it. And so I wanted to ask that question because I think we have been circling around this topic for so long, where it's like, can I be celebrated as our ancestors have been, right? Because let's be honest, like slavery did not end, on Juneteenth. Like it did not. And that even for women, there were times and places where we could not stand up, did not have a voice. And so when I say I'm an independent woman, I'm saying this is my voice. Hear me roar.
Word.
So I'll move us on because I thank you guys for starting with that. But I'm just curious to know, what have you all been up to? What's going on with you, Tiff? I know personally that you've got Speak on it. We're going to keep plugging it shamelessly. And so I'm just curious to know, what you all have going on. What have you been doing?
Sorry, sis.
No, you're good. Look, we're going to act up. This is how we was in class. Y'all got that note? Did anybody do their homework last night? So what y'all been up to?
Well, let's
We'll start with Shawn.
Oh, well, yeah. It's been a journey. It's I wish I could say that everything has been completely just, worry free without, as the old folks say, trials and tribulations. But, I've had my trials. I've had my growing up that I had to do a lot of man in the mirror moments where I had to really look in the mirror and redefine who it was that I wanted to be. So, in going through this process of maturation, really understanding who Shawn really was at my core.
Okay.
And being able to share that, as you mentioned, being engaged it's a wonderful thing.
Congratulations on your engagement.
Is this your first?
This is my first engagement.
Your first
my last engagement.
Yeah, I know that's right.
Okay.
And that in itself, it was the moment that I realized. My little cousin asked me one day, he said, "Man, how did you know that she was the one?" I said, "Because I knew that when I was okay with myself, when I was ready to accept another person for who they are," and I said it earlier, as they are, where they are.
Not who you want them to be.
Not who you want them to be, but who they
That's so
are.
deep.
Who they are.
It goes very deep.
Yeah, and you got to meet people where they are.
Yeah.
And when I recognize the God in her, and I say the God in her because, again, I said, as I look at women, this is God. When I recognized the God in her, and I saw that she didn't look at me with eyes of judgment. Any of my past transgressions, she simply stood and said that it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's not what you did, but what are you doing?
Yeah.
And who you are.
You are. Where are you going?
Yeah.
That is the man that I love. I love the man that is now.
Yeah. So let me ask you this though, because I think it is as important as it is for us to recognize who our life partner, our husband, our wife is. When did you recognize, or how did you even get to the point of realizing that you were ready, right? That you were becoming the right person for her?
Ooh. Oh, when I wanted her to win more than myself.
Ooh.
I said,
Love.
I want to see you do better than I could imagine myself being.
Yeah.
And when I knew that, and my mom always told me, she said, my parents were married for over 30 years. And, I had great examples and grandparents, my parents, that came from married people. And so I saw that. And what they were all said to me is that this takes work. And it's not about the great times and the good, because you're going to have those. It's about those tough times.
Yeah.
Who do you want to see by your side? Who's going to stick by you during those times? Because it's going to be bumps in the road.
Yeah.
But who's going to be with you for the ride? Who's going to jump ship, but who's going to stay in there with you? And that's when you know that you have a partner. And like I said, there is a balance to it. She's not dependent on me. She doesn't rely. She may rely on me for things that I say that I am going to do because that's my intention. So she relies upon that, but she's not dependent on that. If I were to leave tomorrow, she could still keep it going. You know what I'm saying? So when I realized that I really had a partner that she had her own goals, she had her own purpose, and I was able to acknowledge that, and she was able to acknowledge mine. That was that moment where I said, this is my life partner. And my grandmother, before she transitioned, she said, that's your life partner, because she's like, you guys can argue, you can disagree. It's like, but what happens is that you keep finding ways to come back together to figure it out.
That's powerful.
And I said, you know what? You're right. And I mean, she didn't get to see the engagement, and she, you know, transitioned before it, but she already knew that beforehand. So she already said, you go ahead and marry her because that's your person. And I said, all right. So, you know, it was one of the things I did listen to.
So you guys got generational blessings.
Yes.
You know, we talk about generational curses, but that's a generational blessing.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's speak on it.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, say it now.
So since we're saying speak on it, Tiff, what you been up to, girl?
Poetry. I'm a writer, mommy. Like, you know, speak on it, which is a open mic. It's an event for people who need to speak on it. I have a lot of things going on in the background. I'm still creating some things that
we'll share later.
Yeah. But I'm just enjoying. I'm savoring this life that I'm living right now. It feels so good, and so that's what I've been up to.
Yeah,
just experiencing and tasting it and being conscious of my day to day.
And you've written a book, which I mentioned in the beginning. But why don't you tell us about your book?
It's a collection. Selah is the title of. It's a collection of short stories and poems. See some of my early spiritual transformations in there. You see some of my new woman, hear me roar energy in there. So it's my freshman body of work.
Yeah. And then why don't you let the audience know where they can find you on Wednesday nights?
Oh, yeah. So every first Wednesday in Oakland at For the Culture. It's the old Mexicali Rose, which is dope because the owner of the joint, shout out Chris, what's up? He kept some of the murals, most of the art that was in there with the previous owners, just to honor Oakland and the owners who have cultivated the space. But it's a beautiful community. It's a Bay Area spoken word space. So everybody comes from their little corner of the Bay Area, their borough, so to speak. And you've been there. Did you like it?
I love it.
You love it?
I've been there a few times.
Wait a minute. First Wednesdays?
Every first.
Well,
you ain't been yet.
I know.
Come on out, Shawn.
We showing
you
up.
need to go.
I may show up. I may get on the microphone.
That's what
I
I'm
don't
saying.
know.
You do.
I got some things to say.
Yeah. And that's what it's about. It's about a platform, like how you've cultivated this platform where people get to speak. It's that. It's expression, activation central. So that's where I'm at in life. We align perfectly. Look at us. Yeah. We align perfectly. Look at us.
I just love you guys. You guys are like amazing.
I love you
thank
too.
you guys for just inviting me. You know,
Shay.
I feel safe, and I can't express that enough. I'm sorry. This is my sidebar. As a
okay.
black man, when you enter a space and you feel safe, it's a testament to that energy. You know what I mean? You feel like you can be your authentic self, and I think that we need a lot more of that as black men. We need a place that we can come to and be your authentic self and not be, hardened and have to carry that, perpetual image that is out there. So I want to say thank y'all for creating that space.
Absolutely.
Thank you
guys.
Honestly, I know I'm biased because I love our generation.
Mm-hmm. We tight.
We're tight. We dope.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how we went to high school together, and we can share this space and talk very openly about our lives and what we've gone through. And I appreciate that so much. I have to ask you because I feel the generations to come, we're seeing changes. And so I'll give an example. I was talking to my middle son, who's 16, and I was saying, that generation is going to be the generation that works smarter, not harder, right? Mm-hmm. Because for whatever reason, AI and everything that's coming to be, that this generation is just going to be a smarter generation. Mm-hmm. And my 16-year-old said, yeah, but we're losing relationship. And he said, because your generation, and like he's 16 and he's noticing this. He's like, your generation, like you talk on the phone, you go out to brunch, you see each other. And he's like, we're all behind our computer screens. Yeah. So he was like, so although we're probably smarter in terms of the way we work, and he goes, we're dumb behind the scenes because we don't know how to interact with people.
Right.
And so I wanted to ask you both in terms of like what you're noticing, especially in our communities. What are you noticing about our community now, where it is, the state that it's in, and what bothers you, but also what inspires you? about what you're seeing? I know, and you can think on that.
I was going to let you go ahead.
I can run point?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was going to let you start that one.
I'm noticing so much it's a loaded answer.
Yeah.
So I'll just knee jerk and just kind of respond with the first that comes to mind. And I think our generation, society today, is we're too behind a computer screen and a phone screen. And so although we understand what it was like to play outside and have friends and meet up at the mall and have to communicate on the phone, and have to synchronize with people to be able to have that phone conversation, because we didn't have text message. We had pagers, and even that was hard, right? But with that, I think social media, I think the media it's the new world, and I think we're all being molded by it to some degree.
Yeah.
It's good and it can be bad. Like it's look, this is a media outlet right here. And so this is good for the soul, but there's cancel culture, there's catfishing, there's so many different things that, there's online bullying. And we experience it too.
Right.
There's getting attention on the gram. Like, it's so many things that I think we are being molded by. And if we're not careful as a conscious generation, as the conscious lit generation that we are, if we're not careful, I think that we could pass the baton to the next generation, the upcoming Gen Zs, in a bad way.
Yeah.
I think if we're not conscious of building relationships and, dispelling all of the negativity that comes with and through like the media and we're in the age of Aquarius, which means we're the age of information, and so much information coming so fast and like every 5 seconds. And so we just have to be good sifters of that information.
Yeah. What about you, Shawn? Well, funny thing, Tiff, before we go on, you said catfishing, and I laughed to myself because I don't know if it's ever happened to either one of y'all.
I haven't had it,
but I've been catfished. It is not a good feeling.
Oh, okay. I was like, wait, was it seasoned catfish? Or was it not seasoned?
No, it wasn't the catfish that come with collard greens and macaroni and cheese. Site? It wasn't though. Actually, it was actually by someone that I knew from the past. But when I linked up with them, they didn't look how they looked in all their Instagram pictures.
This is weird.
And it was, y'all know them too, but we're not going to say no names. And it was funny because it was like, I got there and I'm like, bro, you could have like told me.
Oh,
like,
you've been catfished.
I have been. I've never No.
No one ever took your picture.
No. Like
She was catfish.
I was
You
catfish.
were like, wait a minute.
Yeah. So anyways, I just was like, when you said, I'm like, man, that's real. Like, had a real experience with that. But Shawn, in terms of you, like, what are you noticing?
I think that it is, the information that is being disseminated across social media. I mean, like Tiffany said, to touch on that, it's great because it does allow for you to share information, mass amount of information.
Well, it allowed us to reconnect.
Yeah, and that's these are the positive experiences. But I've also noticed other things on there, like, and I'm gonna shout that, and don't give them no airtime with those idiot passport boys.
Oh, I heard about that. I'm so old school.
They talk about stuff that it makes no sense, but they have an audience, and that's what I think we have to be careful of. Is we have to be careful of giving the megaphone to people who necessarily shouldn't have a megaphone, or at least creating the ability to discern between that type of information. So it's like you're going to hear this stuff, but also know that there's a reality to it, and that doesn't apply. It's not applicable. So I just think that with this, too much is given, much is expected.
Right.
So as we are entering this age, and and I work in the tech industry, so I'm like, it's amazing how advanced it's gotten and how it can advance our society.
Yeah.
But it's also very dangerous because we can also see the things that it can start, like the insurrections and all the things. And it's funny, we look at like the mass shootings. People always go back to oh, look back at their social media. And they always kind of find a trail there. And it's like, well, why wasn't somebody paying attention to this?
Right.
So I think that we can actually turn it around and, make it, into a positive, but we just have to be very, very careful as we continue to progress. Is, now we have all this power. We need to know or understand that whoever wields this power understands the full ramifications of this. So there is a responsibility to this as well.
So I think there's a number of things that are that benefit us as people, and then also it could be the demise of us as well. And so we talked a little bit about social media, but there's also the trends that happen on social media or just in day-to-day life. And so I want to ask you too, because we've talked a bit about relationship, and especially, to my brother who is engaged and soon to be married. There's this hot girl, act bad trend that's happening right now. I'm just curious to know for you, Tiff, you're raising a young girl. You also have a daughter as well, right?
Yeah.
So in terms of like when you see this and how you think it may impact your daughters, and how it's also impacting relationships. Because, we've talked about being an independent woman. And I think that there's this fine line between independent woman and hot girl summer, where it's like, it's one thing to own like who we are, but it's also to take accountability and like, is what I'm doing as a woman or as a man affecting the way that I do relationship. And so I'm just curious to know, as you all are raising young girls, and then you're also thinking about like how you do relationships with your own significant others, whether now or later, how that's affecting us. Tiff, I'm gonna start with you.
Okay. That's a loaded answer too,
It's
because it was a loaded question, and that's good.
Listen, I come locked and loaded.
Deep. Yeah, it's deep. Hot girl summer, act bad, act up, like all of it for me. This is just for me. I don't take it literally.
Yeah.
I take it figuratively. I pull the essence out of those songs and out of those sayings. I don't know if everyone else does it. This is just me. I pull the essence out and I tap in with the essence, because there are days where I need to get in the car. Me and my daughter on the way to school, I'm like, she's DJ in the car. And I'm driving and she's like, what are we listening to? I'm like, turn on Megan. And me and my daughter are bumping Megan on the way to school. My daughter has straight A's. My daughter has high aspirations.
Speak on it.
Yeah, she's a great kid. She's respectful. And so it's not, for us, it's not producing or cultivating like the literal, busting it wide open type stuff where you're just loose with your body. You're not respecting your sacred sexuality. You're not respecting the way you maneuver in society, in the dating world, or just as a woman, a young woman, because we take the essence. And some days we need to hear like that empowerment through Megan's voice. Sometimes we need to hear act bad, because it's not literal for us. However, people can take it literally, and that's where we got to be careful. We got to be good critical thinkers.
That discernment has
we have to have
in.
discernment. We have to be good critical thinkers, and just kind of understand that that's another world. That's a subculture. That's a different world. And other people may resonate with that literally.
Yeah.
And, I'm here not to judge and just to hit on your, but that's for people to have their own discernment session. But to hit on how is it affecting relationships, I don't think it affects relationships in a negative way. It can add to the fact that we're in this threshold moment we talked about earlier, this new dating world that we're in, this generation versus the previous generation before us. And it does serve, for me as a woman, it does serve that side of me that needs to be liberated. So if on Sunday I'm going to go brunching with Eb and I turn on Megan or turn on the City Girls or whoever I'm feeling at the time.
Shout out Carisha, please.
Y'all trying to get flued out?
Yeah, right. Like, see, all of that. You know what I mean? It's fun, it's good, or whatever. And if that's what I turn on while I'm getting dressed, and if that's what I turn on my way to brunch to have this liberated, free, good girl time with my homegirl, that's how I take it. And that's what, that's as far as I take it now. Other people might be having hot girl summers and messing up their relationships, but that's on them. Megan did have a hot girl semester too, though. So we can't judge the culture too bad. But I don't think it messes up relationships.
No judgment on it. Just curious to know.
I just think that people within relationships, for me, it serves as a liberation method, right? Or like a vibration. But if it's affecting relationships, then you don't need to be with that person in the first place. You know what I mean? Like, it's not your person.
Shawn, only because we're running out of time, and so we're gonna have to do a part 2. I have to say that now. But I want you to really speak to relationship, because as a man that's coming into marriage, soon to be married, and when you think about like this act bad, and you know, like she said, some of us who have a level of discernment can take it figuratively. But there is also that literal aspect, right? And so when you think about your daughters and you think about your own relationship and how that can impact, that representation can impact it.
I think that's what it is. As first we start off as representation, like, but you have to know yourself first. So like who you are as a woman, you represent yourself all the time. So it whatever you listen to, that's on you. And I will say this, I mean, women can say whatever they like. They can do whatever they like. That's not on a woman. Yeah. Now, if a man, you feel some kind of way offended, then we need to work on how we bring up our boys. We need to change that. And wonder, okay, well, why are you so quick to be with that suggestiveness? Right. Because if she didn't give you no consent, then it ain't none of that. I don't care what she said.
Come on.
If she ain't give you no consent.
Can you just say it again for the people in the back?
If she has not given you consent, there is nothing that is indicating. There is no, was she invited? She didn't do nothing. You know when somebody is okay with your approaches and your advances, welcoming. If they're asking for that attention, it's a literal ask. It ain't no suggestion. It's a literal ask. She gonna be like, "Oh, hey, how you doing? Oh, well, so, all right. Well, this lady, how you doing? You know." Right. Then you can go into that. But when I think of hearing that word, I mean, to you, you mentioned liberation, and I'm here to listen. Because as a man, as a woman, that is your space. That is your right. If that's your liberation, then who am I to tell you that what you're doing, what your version of liberation is not okay? Yeah. That's you. If that's what you feel like listening to, that's great. I listen to Tupac. So I'm gonna hit him up. I'm not, I'm like, hey, I'm in there. I'm a gangster, you know. My fiance be like, you listen to the most ignorant stuff. I said, I do. I be trapping. I'm like, man, in my head, I'm like,
on our way to our corporate jobs, trapping in the car.
I be trapping in the car, you know. I mean, hear me tell it, man, I'm El Chapo. I'm like, man, I got everything going on. Literally none of that stuff. I was like, man, I ain't even seen half of that stuff ever. I'm like, but to me, that's just, that's just listening. But I have that exactly, and I have that ability to discern between that. So when you see me and you meet me, it's a different type of person. Right. But when I hear that, I just think that it's now it's time for people to be okay with being who they are. And at first, when I listened to those lyrics, I was kind of apprehensive. Oh, really? Like when I'm listening to like Meg, I'm like, well, tell me,
spit a bar where you're like, wait a minute, what? No,
Tiffany, you really had to call him out.
I just want to know what,
where she was like hands on my knees, like that. I was like, wait a minute. At first, I'm trying to say, I'm like, well, man, what you talking about? Wait, but I'm just like, all right, and I'm listening, and I'm thinking in my head like, dang, if my daughters are saying this, I'd be like, whoa, wait.
Okay, wait, listen. So we have to circle back to this, but before we say too much, I'm going to segue us over into the next part of this podcast that is called Taboo Talk. And we got a few minutes to touch on this. Okay. All right. So calm down, hands off your knees. Sit back. Taboo Talk today. Let's talk about sex. Ooh. And I'm curious to know what sex means. And yes, so Taboo Talk, let me just say, Taboo Talk is something that we would talk about behind the scenes in the comfort of our own homes. But I like to bring it to the audience because if I'm saying it, you're thinking it. And so what does sex mean for each of you? And we don't have a lot, so I'll give you both 30 seconds.
Okay, me first. You gave me that look. Sex for me is emotional. It's spiritual. It's energetic. It's alchemical. It's sometimes physical too, but
it's a lot of time physical.
First off, that's what it is.
Definitely, it's physical. I think it also depends on the type of sex that you're having, with whom you're having sex with. Like if it's in obviously a partner that you've connected with, there's a deeper level of that sex versus someone that, let's just be real. If you just trying to get it in. You just trying to get it in. Both of y'all trying to reach your physical moment of peaking, and it is what it is. But if it's someone that you care deeply about, it's a little bit more. Then you take it to that other level, like Tiffany was mentioning, then it's emotional. Then it becomes spiritual. Then it becomes, as they say, orgasmic. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like a lot of people haven't experienced the orgasm. Like you haven't experienced orgasmic levels because you're not connected to that other person yet. So those are the, it gets much deeper. And like I said, we probably could talk for a whole another 30, 40 minutes.
We'll bring it back to that. And I didn't ask you to this, but I'll say I look at it now as like my 2 C's. And so what it was for me was control. Before I knew myself, I used it, and just it's something that you're subconsciously taught, right? By media, by our parents. Like if you see your parents arguing, and then mom needs to get or dad needs to get what he wants, and then they use sex to control a situation. And so I believed that all the way through my marriage. And it wasn't until coming out of my marriage when I started to learn me and understand like my standards and how to love myself properly, that I realized that it went into a second C, which is connection. Is how I connect on a deeper level. And it encompasses everything that you've shared, whether it's spirituality, it's physical, it's deep. But before, I remember using it as a form of control. But anyways, y'all, we out of time.
That was pretty brave. Thank you for sharing and being transparent about that. A lot of people would admit that, but yeah.
So listen, we have a lot more to talk about. I am so thankful, honestly, so thankful to have both my buddies, my high school buddies. Tiffany, we go long before then, here on Queen's Vantage Podcast today. Shawn, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Sharing your story. Tiff, thank you again for joining us. Real quickly, do you have any shout outs? Anyone you want to shout out at home or just out there who's listening?
Go, Shawn.
Go, Shawn.
My mom and them. And that's everybody, my family, fiance, my daughters. I love you guys. This is who I do it for, how I do it, why I do it. And ask me again, I do it all over.
Yeah. Aww. Tiff, you got any shout outs today?
I don't know why this stumps me, but I don't really have a shout out other than, what I think more Black men like Shawn need to be heard on podcasts like this. And maybe you start your own, because
come on, Shawn.
Men need vulnerable spaces where they can be vulnerable and help perpetuate the narrative that it's okay.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So
listen, y'all, that's been another episode of Queen's Vantage Podcast. Remember, the crown may tilt, but it will never fall off. Hey y'all, so if you're looking for more Queen's Vantage Podcast, you can find me on Instagram and on Facebook at Queen's Vantage Podcast. I am also, for visuals and audio, I'm on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Please leave a comment, let me know your thoughts, engage with the Queen. Listen, I respond, and also my wonderful producer, AJ, will respond to you. We really want to engage and talk to you all. Listen, like, comment, share, and subscribe. Subscribe. Thank you.